Ladies and gentlemen, it is February 6, 2022, and this is the next video in my Black History Month series. And I'm going to be talking about Mr. Dorris Miller. This young man right here. I've done a couple different things for Black History Month over the past few years. I believe 2 years ago, I wrote a whole blog post on my website, www.dkendrickjr.com. Last year, I got multiple tattoos for Africa. And this month, I'm going to be dedicating the month to African American veterans because if you know me, you know myself. I am an African American veteran. And let's get right into it. So, Dorris Miller, he's a man from Waco, Texas. Shout out to Texas. Shout out to Waco, Texas. I feel like Waco is known for something else, but I don't know what it is. It may be good or bad. I just can't put my thumb on it. However, this black man came from Waco, Texas, and decided to make a better life for himself, like many of us African American men do when we don't know what we want to be in our lives and when we don't know what we want to do with our lives. He joined the Navy. Not gonna shame him, not gonna, throw any shade on him for not joining the Army, because go Army, beat Navy, of course, every year. However, this young man decided to join his Army, and I paid homage to him because he joined the Army during the time when the Army was segregated. World War II time, 1940s. This was a time when people were still ignorant and they thought that African Americans weren't worth a damn. And when it came to intellect, they didn't think that African Americans had intellect. So they segregated the Army, and Mr. Miller joined the Army as a cook because people thought back then in the 1940s, hey, you're black, you want to join the military, the only thing that you're qualified to do is serve food to white people. And just let that sink in. The only thing that you are qualified to do is be a cook. Serve us. Think about it. Think about American soldiers now and how we praise them, how they put us on the pedestal. This was the 1940s, and they told this black man the only thing that you are good enough to do is be a cook to serve food to us, and you can't even serve alongside your fellow Americans because at the end of the day we're all Americans. You got to serve with African Americans because you weren't good enough to be with us. Anyway, let's move on. Why is this man so famous? It's because they named a Navy supercarrier after him about 3 years ago. And for those of you who don't know what a Navy supercarrier is, I do have a picture here. And this is what a Navy supercarrier looks like. It's one of those, I don't even know what you want to call them. It's a supercarrier. So it carries those military aircrafts. So when we need to attack people or drop some bombs on people real quick, when we in the sea, we fly them in on that. We fly them off on that. Now I'm Navy. I'm Army. So in the Army we say boots on the ground. I don't know too much about Navy supercarriers. I don't know about any type of carriers, but I did my history and my research on Mr. Miller, and from what I found, these types of ships are named usually after presidents. USS Eisenhower. Name your favorite president in the past. I don't think that there's been a supercarrier named after them recently. However, it was very common for those to be named after presidents, and in the past, all the presidents were Caucasian. Now let's get back to Mr. Miller and why I am celebrating this black man today. Many people know about 9/11, which was, I believe, it goes down as the most horrific terrorist attack on American soil. However, there was also a terrorist attack called Pearl Harbor. And this is when the Japanese, they bombed our ships. I believe they were in Hawaii, and many, many, many Americans lost their lives. During this attack, Mr. Miller saw that we were being attacked. He saw his fellow men in arms were being attacked. Didn't matter what color they were. He took action to defend the red, white, and blue. And he helped men who were drowning. He helped men who were burning in the water because oil was in the water and the water was on fire. And he did something that was unprecedented. And he took hold of an AA gun, anti-aircraft gun. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, anti-aircraft means there are, basically, layman's terms, the big long guns, even though they aren't called guns, they're weapons, the big long guns you see that are meant to take out aircrafts. And why this was so important at the time is because African Americans weren't trained to shoot these guns because the army was segregated. And for a long time, African Americans had to prove, even in the military in the 1940s, had to prove that they were smart enough. They had the intellect to shoot these guns. Now, that's a recurring theme throughout American history. African Americans having to prove their intellect, to prove that they are worthy to be in any position. Anyway, back to the point. Dorris Miller got on that AA gun, shot down enemy aircrafts, saving his fellow Americans in the process. And then here's the part about America back then that may make you upset. Here's why I'm so proud to join, be part of the Calvary. After this attack, he got no recognition. None. No recognition at all. This black man who was a boxing champion on the ship, because he can box all day, he can entertain white folks by boxing. Hey, you can entertain us, but you aren't smart enough to serve alongside us white folks. That was a mindset back then. And also, shout out to his boxing skills, because I served at Fort Carson, Colorado, and I did train alongside the WCAP program, the World Class Athlete program on Fort Carson, Colorado. I trained with them boys at the NSCA in Fort Carson, Colorado. Well, not Fort Carson, but in Colorado Springs. And I recently made a connection with one of the boxers, Anthony Shepard, who I sparred with. So shout out to boxing. Shout out to him to having those skills. However, back to the point once again, they saw this man as just a big black African American who was good for nothing except cooking. But he took it upon himself when we got attacked to spring into action, get on that AA gun, shoot down those Japanese planes, and defend his fellow Americans. Why is that so special? Because in this book, my book, Calvary, one of the first things that I learned in basic training, Drill Sergeant Owens, 615 Hotel Troop, 2005, baby. He said, look around, look to your left, look to your right. We are all green. This is back then when the Army was wearing BDUs, because when I joined the Army, we were still in BDUs in 2005. We are all green. He said, look around. One day you may have to depend upon one of your brothers to save your lives. And it doesn't matter what his skin color is. We are all green. Mr. Miller learned that lesson way back in the 1940s. Something that you don't have to be taught to be a natural human being. Now, after this attack on Pearl Harbor, they didn't want to give Mr. Miller any type of praise. Why? Because of the color of his skin. Black men can't be heroes. We're not going to make a black man a hero. These white men saved themselves. However, the black press stepped up for Mr. Miller, and they put pressure on the entire country. And back then, the president was Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now, I can't tell you much about Mr. Eisenhower because obviously I wasn't born back then, and none of my family was born back then. However, I do know that after seeing Mr. Miller's heroism, the army was desegregated. And then, guess what the entire world found out? These black soldiers can do the same things that we can do. These same exact things that us white folks can do in the army. However, they just weren't given the chance. Now, I'm going to take it back to one of my speeches that I gave for Black History Month a long time ago called Ode to Black History, because somehow in an African American community we always have to prove ourselves. Some people are just given the benefit of the doubt. African Americans have to work extra hard, including African American soldiers. So, Mr. Miller, he got a Navy Cross, which is, from what I understand, just a step below the Medal of Honor. Now, the Medal of Honor, everyone knows what the Medal of Honor is. It's the top of the top, the creme de la creme. I served with somebody who got a Medal of Honor, Clint Romachet. I served in 361 Cav with him during my first deployment, the deployment that I write about in this book. However, my unit went to Afghanistan. I lost my friend Scusa, and I was devastated. But Clint Romachet stepped up, man, and I just recently talked to him about getting this man into a movie. Thank you for that. Go see The Outpost and go follow Medal of Honor on Netflix. But it took the black press to say, hey, you're not going to just dismiss Dorris Miller like that. This black man saved not only America and American troops, he saved white troops. Think about that. It took for the black press, for black people to step up for a black man and say, no. You're not going to dismiss his accomplishments. You're going to honor this man in the way that he should be honored. Now, moving on from there, during World War II, we fought the Nazis. There's a famous general that many people know about, General Patton. And when the army was desegregated, General Patton served with other African American troops. And he said, oh, okay, well, maybe these, back then we were called Negroes, because this country was built upon racism. Maybe these Negro soldiers are worth something. So in February of 2022, I pay homage to Mr. Dorris Miller, his accomplishments, his super carrier named after him, because if it wasn't for soldiers like Mr. Dorris Miller, I wouldn't have been able to get this myself. I joined the Army as a Calvary Scout. And yes, I pay homage to the Buffalo Soldiers. However, I pay homage to all the African American soldiers that came before me, made it possible for me to do something like this, become a leader, a NCO in the military. Now, I got shot in Iraq, serving as a Calvary Scout, earning one of these in the process. A Purple Heart. Now, this is my actual Purple Heart. I did get mine framed, and I hope to pass all these things down in my family one day. But a long time ago, African American veterans weren't even thought about when it came to fighting on the front lines. And I served as a Calvary Scout in 2006. And because of the sacrifices that Mr. Miller made for people like me, I was able to serve among a diverse group of veterans like these here that I talk about in my book, Calvary, which you can find on Amazon. However, this was my truck. We were the lead scout. That's me, burnt to hell because the Iraq sun was hot. My TC, last name Ramos, Hispanic origin. And then this man right here, he was the hardest NCO I ever had on me. Sgt Francis, from Staten Island, New York. Italian. But if it wasn't for the sacrifices that Mr. Miller made, I wouldn't have had a chance to serve with a diverse crew like this. And now, I am, and I will always be known as Sergeant Kendrick. NCO. And let me tell you why this is so important. Let me read the first line of this to you. Let's see if I can get this hit. Creed of the non-commissioned officer. And I was 20 years old when I got this. No one is more professional than I. I am a non-commissioned officer, a leader of soldiers. As a non-commissioned officer, I realize that I am a member of a time-honored corps, which is known as the backbone of the Army. I am proud of the Corps of Non-Commissioned Officer and will at all times conduct myself so as to bring credit upon the Corps, the military service, and my country, regardless of the situation in which I find myself. I will not use my grade or position to attain pleasure, profit, or personal safety. Signed, 24th of June, 2009, in the WTU, because even though I was injured, the Army was my entire life, and I wanted to dedicate my life to the Army. And even though I got out shortly after that, I still brought respect among my fellow NCOs. I wanted to stay in the Army, and I wanted to be a leader. I wasn't able to do that. But let me tell you why Mr. Miller, myself, and every other African American soldier before me is so special. This is my little sister. Come on and focus. And if I had a producer, this would be easier. Bria. My little sister Bria, wearing my uniform when I came home for R&R. You see the 2ID patch, our unit got reflagged to 4-4, and the crest on my beret back when the Army had berets, come on, focus, was the 361 Calvary Crest. Unlike me, that I write about in my book Calvary, get it on Amazon, she graduated from high school on time. From East High School. I have a chapter in the book called I'm from Rochester. I wanted everybody to go to Franklin High School. She didn't. She went to East, but she graduated on time. And now, my beautiful little 20-year-old sister is in the Army as a combat engineer, serving overseas in Europe. Even though she saw her big brother, me, get shot by a sniper, go through everything I went through, she said, I want to make a better life for myself. I'm going to do that in the United States Army. I'm going to be a combat engineer. However, if it wasn't for Mr. Miller and all the wonderful African Americans that came before us, neither one of us would have had that opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my book, Calvary. You can get it on Amazon. I'm going to put links to all of that in the description. I am trying to get this into a movie, the book into a movie, because our stories are important. Right now, I believe there are only 2 groups of African Americans who even have a movie, and that's the Buffalo Soldiers of the 1800s, which I proudly represent with this hat, and then the Tuskegee Airmen, which I will be talking about soon. But in the past 20 years of war, there are no stories about African American soldiers. I'm trying to be the first. So happy Black History Month. I love you all. Until next time, we out.